Delivery dates of a $2,000 fourth stimulus check in 2024 for Social Security, including retirement, disability, SSDI, survivors, SSI, VA, RRB, low income, no income, seniors, older adults, and of course, people with disabilities. I have all the details and answers to your questions and concerns right here in the video. Let's get right into it. I know in this video, I do want to specifically talk about some of the questions and concerns as well as requests from some of you here in the community reaching out asking how quickly could they get us a $2,000 stimulus check right now in 2024 in the event they pass another one specifically focused on the low income and what's going on with the economic picture and everything else we've been talking about and focusing on here on the channel and in previous videos right now for 2024. Again, great questions, and I want to focus on all of this and answer those concerns here in the video. Let's get into it and talk about what's actually going on and how quickly could they actually get money out to us in the event that they actually do pass something right here, right now, or relatively soon. Really fast before we do, thanks for joining me. If you have not done so yet, make sure to do yourself a huge favor. Hit that subscribe button right down below the video. It is totally free to do so, and I'm here for you right by your side every single day, watching the latest details, seeing the wire, doing all the research, breaking it all down into these short videos, and pointing out anything you can possibly grab right now, including, but not limited to, money, benefits, checks, stimulus, raises to benefits, anything else like that, focused on the low income and fixed income, and of course, advocating on your behalf in any way that I possibly can. As I've been saying for quite a few months now, it is all about you right now in 2024. There's a lot of things going on right now. If you haven't noticed, a lot of announcements, a lot of new bills, packages, and proposals, and it's all leading up to the big event coming in November. Either way, let's get into it and talk about it. And again, thanks for joining me. Please subscribe down below if you haven't done so yet. And let's talk about the details that everybody here in the community wants to know. How quickly can they get something to us in the event something would be passed? Now, again, I want to clarify and make this very clear right here, right now. I think everybody knows, but again, I want to point this out really fast. A $2,000 stimulus check, or any stimulus check for that matter, as of right now, has not been passed, okay? I always make this very transparent, but again, I've been seeing this question coming in. Many people here in the community reaching out asking, how quickly can they actually get something to us? How soon would we get it once they pass it? How much would it be? Who would be included? Would we be included as fixed income? Would SSDI be included? Would SSI? Would seniors? Again, the list goes on and on. I see the questions asked in a variety of ways and why I want to talk about it. All right. Now, this is actually a really good question because at the end of the day, if they do something, as in if they do pass additional stimulus checks, money, whatever we want to call it, they're probably going to give it some funny name, but whatever they happen to name it, and whatever it happens to be, in the event that they do pass something, how quickly could they get it into our possession? And again, that's the key question that we want to know, because right now, and over the last, call it 3 years or so, people have been struggling bad, like really badly for a very long time now. And we want to know, how quickly could we actually get it? Because people need money like years ago, not like tomorrow, but right now, right? We all know that. So anyway, let me talk you through the details. Now, how am I going to derive this information? I'm going to look back in history, okay? We always know this much. History leaves clues. If we look back in history to see what has gone on, what has happened in history, we can get a little bit of a picture as far as what the future may entail, right? So that's the only way that we know, unless you have a crystal ball or a magic wand or one of these little, future predicting devices, which I don't, but I'm just saying we can look in history, and generally history repeats itself. Therefore, we can probably get a pretty good idea, right? And again, I want to make it very clear. I said this a minute ago. I'm going to say it again really quickly. No, a stimulus check has not been approved as of right now. But again, I'm making this video because I get this question so often as requested, asking when are we going to get it? How much is it going to be? How fast can we get it? All kinds of things like this. All right, let's look back in history now. So Remember all the way back in late March of 2020. In fact, it was passed into law on March 27th, 2020. Okay, this was the CARES Act, $2.3 trillion, and this also contained a $1,200 stimulus check, the first of 3 that we would get basically over a 1-year period of time. Okay, now this one was passed into law March 27th, 2020. The first round, or the huge wave of checks, went out on April 15th. So it was about 2.5 weeks after it was passed and signed into law. It went out to the first round of people, which was the vast majority of people. It took about 2.5 weeks to get that first round of checks out. Now, obviously, there were more people getting checks after that, but generally, it was about 2.5 weeks for round number 1 that went out. All right, so keep that in mind. Next, let's fast forward all the way out until the end of December 2020 again, okay? they passed yet again another piece of legislation which contained the $600 stimulus check. Okay, this was a $900 billion package, just under $1 trillion, and this one contained a $600 stimulus check. Now, this one actually started going out in just 24 hours. It was signed into law on the 28th of December. They started going out 2 days later. Okay, in 48 hours, people started receiving a bunch of checks, and those started going out. However, the vast majority of people, the big flow, the big wave of checks started going out about a week later on January 4th. January 4th was the big push. That was the day in which most people got their checks. So let's just call it 7 days in this case, okay? So in about 7 days' time, a huge percentage of people got their checks with $600 checks from stimulus check number 2 back in the end of 2020, okay? And again, I know this is a couple years ago, but again, remember, like I said, we're looking back in history to understand how fast could something like this actually happen, okay? So check number 1 took about 2.5 weeks. Check number 2 took about 1 week. And now let's talk about check number 3, okay? Now, this one went out in March of 2021, okay? So a few months after the $600 check went out, now we got the approval of the American Rescue Plan, a $1.9 trillion package, which also contained a $1,400 stimulus check for 85% of the population, okay? Let's talk about the details. So this one was passed and signed into law on March 11th, 2021. The first round of checks went out on March 17th. So 6 days after it was passed and signed into law, the first huge wave of checks went out for about 92 million people on the 17th of March. Okay, so this was 6 days after it was signed into law. That first wave of checks went out for a huge percentage of people. However, this is also when there was a major problem that many of us didn't know the answer to at the time because we were trying to figure it out. And if you've been watching the videos since then, you know that I was digging. I was calling the IRS. I was calling Social Security. I was doing all kinds of digging, trying to figure out what was going on and why a lot of fixed income beneficiaries didn't receive their checks at that time. Well, needless to say, it took a while to figure this out, but eventually we figured out that, wait, the Social Security Administration did not submit the files to the IRS, the Treasury, to start submitting those payments out. So it took a couple weeks to figure this out, but eventually that's what happened, and the Social Security Administration sent over the files to the appropriate agencies, and they started distributing checks. But even though the bill was passed and signed into law on March 11th of 2021, most Social Security, now not everybody, but most Social Security beneficiaries, tens of millions of people, started receiving their checks in early April. In fact, April 7th was the big day that the vast majority of Social Security beneficiaries got their payments. So April 7th of 2021, which was nearly a month after it was passed and signed into law, from March 11th to April 7th, is when those checks started going out for fixed income beneficiaries. Now, this should not have happened in the first place. So I would not necessarily say that this is going to be the norm going forward, but rather this was a little bit of a discrepancy because Social Security did not submit the files to the IRS/Treasury to start distributing all this money out to the beneficiaries. So that is what happened there. So I would not say that this is something that's like, we can look into the future and say, well, this is going to happen again. It could easily happen again, but that should not have happened in the first place, which, by the way, the acting commissioner of Social Security at the time got fired immediately after that. Do you remember that? I talked about all the details at that time. But yeah, he got fired and he was out of there because they're like, hey, you can't be doing this, right? He dropped the ball on that one, so they got rid of him. Boom. Gone, fired, right? So I talked about that at the time. But anyway, that is what happened there. So long story short, let's talk about the details here really fast. Let me break this all down, okay? Check number 1 went out in a matter of 2.5 weeks. Check number 2, 7 days. Check number 3, 6 days. Let's just call it a week for easy math, okay? So in the event that they pass another package and another check does get distributed, something like this, it could easily be distributed. It could easily be sent out in 7 days or less, okay? Let's just call it 7 days, okay? So remember this much as well. I want to emphasize this as well, okay? Let's just say that something goes through the House and the Senate, okay? Let's just say that they come together on a multi-$100 billion package or a $1 trillion package to revitalize the economy because it is going down the tubes and it's in a recession, it's contracting, things like this, and they need to pump it up. Okay, so let's say that they pass a package of, say, $1 trillion, something like this. I don't know. I'm just making up a number here, $1 trillion, just because that's kind of a big number, and they're probably in the trillions now with all these packages. But if they passed $1 trillion package and it did contain some type of check, remember, it needs to pass through the House, pass through the Senate, and then it has to be signed into law by the president, okay? So however long it takes him to pass or to sign it, it could take a couple days. Sometimes we've seen that before with previous packages where they pass it, the House and the Senate, and then they just sit on it and wait. And it's like, what is going on? Sign the thing already, right? So that could happen again. But remember, it is not official until it has the signature from the president. At that time, it's a done deal. It's signed, it's sealed, and it's done at that point, right? So we would need to wait for all that to happen. Once it is signed, then the clock starts a ticking, okay? And remember, what happens here is generally the IRS has pretty much everybody's information, okay? They already have everybody's information because most people file tax returns. And for those people that do not file a tax return because maybe they receive some type of fixed income benefit from Social Security, again, it's as simple as the Social Security Administration submitting a file to the IRS Treasury where they can actually submit those payments, and they have all your banking information between the IRS and Social Security. They have banking information or direct deposit / direct express cards / addresses of literally every single person. They know everything, okay? So at that point, we probably wouldn't need to do anything like what we did over the last few years here. When payments were distributed, we did nothing. We just waited. That was the only thing we had to do. Except, to be fair, some people did have to file a simple federal basic tax return. Some people did have to make additional steps, but the vast majority of people did not have to do anything. We just had to wait patiently. Well, I'm not sure about you, but that was the hardest part for me, waiting patiently, right? It was not a fun time when they're like, yeah, it's coming. Just get ready, and checking your bank account like 17 times a day and like, okay, it hasn't arrived yet, things like that. So anyway, for those of you that have been asking how quickly could they get something to us in the form of a $2,000 check, a $1,400 check, $1,000, $6, whatever it happened to be like this, that is how quickly it could be. It could be about 7 days, okay? I wouldn't really anticipate anything sooner than that just because history tells us that it takes them about 7 days to get this in action. But could take longer than that as well. And again, this is as of right now what we know. But remember, nothing has been passed as of yet. But in the event something does get passed, in the event that this economic contraction that we're currently going through continues to get worse and worse, which it may, we'll have to see what happens here, but in the event something like that happens and Congress appropriates hundreds of billions or well over $1 trillion in some type of package and they want to offer some type of stimulus, remember, this is what could happen. So as of right now, this is just what we know, okay? I'm going to continue watching everything very closely, and the closer and closer that we get to November, the more intense it's going to get, right? The bigger the promises are going to get, and the more empty those promises are likely going to be, right? just the nature of the game as we approach these types of situations. So anyway, hope this helps you. But again, I just want to clarify that. And again, I want to be 100% transparent here in this video and say, no, checks have not been approved yet, okay? But in the event something does get approved at some given point, then now we know. We know the details about this. And again, I'm watching all of it very closely. If we get any kind of talk about this, if we get any type of details, if we get anything approved, if we get anything introduced, something like that, better believe it. I'm going to be all over that. And again, I will bring you those details immediately upon any of that information being released like that. So watching everything very closely, and as we get more details on anything, of course, I'll bring it to you right away as we get that information. I'm watching the headlines literally every single day. I'm watching the headlines all day, every day, and breaking it all down into these short videos so you can stay posted on what's going on, and of course, grabbing anything out there that you can possibly grab or take advantage of, including money, benefits, raises to benefits, checks, stimulus, programs, anything else like that. Of course, I want to bring it to your attention right away. So enjoy your day. Please make sure to subscribe down below if you haven't done so yet. Share the video with your friends from your social media. Go back and check out any of the other thousands of videos here on the channel, including those that I have linked down below in the description. Otherwise, enjoy. Take care. Hope this answers the questions for you, and I'll catch you again later.